we can deal with our issue with our kids so that we can have safety in the future. Also, our cops getting some immediate people on the street, at least the equivalent of 200 officers on the street in the first 100 days of my administration. Working with the courts to make sure that repeat and violent offenders aren't continued to be let out on the street, to make sure that we're enforcing the laws in around our nightlife and clubs, and then also making sure that we deal with everyone, the community, and making sure that you know that you are a part also in helping us to keep our city safe. And so my plan, again, is comprehensive. There's no magic solution.
Thank you for sharing that. Excellent. Let's stick with public safety. Members of law enforcement put their lives on the line every day to protect and serve Atlanta communities. Unfortunately, across the nation and in Georgia, there's still a lot of work to do in addressing racial profiling and systematic discrimination. This is big with our community. What would you do to further build productive relationships with Atlanta's Latino community? Councilman Dickens.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this question. This kind of helps to round out the first part of it, where we really need to focus on safety and justice. It's not just about having more cops, more guys and gals with badges and guns to be able to protect our community. It's about making sure that the community and the police have a great relationship. We have to foster this understanding and build trust. And that's why I will enact legislation to make sure that we add 2 members of the Latino community to our Citizens Review Board. Recently, we just added 2 members from the youth, 18 to 30. That was my legislation. And now I see the need to make sure that we add a Latino member from a Hispanic community to be able to be in there, to have their input. And it could be a person chosen from the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce or Galeo or any other organization, to be able to add that input to the organization and to make sure that the police really understand and have immigrant affairs to be able to come and train our police officers on how to help victims and members of the community be able to respond to police and in a non-confrontational way together.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Council President Moore, if you don't mind, just about systematic discrimination and racial profiling.
So I know this very up close and personal. I've had family members, close friends who have unfortunately been beaten by police or have had bad situations with police officers, and some racially motivated, others because of just profiling. And so I want to make sure that our police officers interact with our community in a way that our community feels safe. And one way to do that is to open up that line of, to break down that blue wall of silence within the police department. And I talk to many of them. And what I find from them is that they don't feel free to let people know when other officers are doing wrong. And so I'm going to open up a confidential line where they can feel free without retribution to be able to tell us what's going on. They tell us to see something, say something. We want them to see something and say something so that we have an opportunity to root out those bad actors that are supposed to be protecting us as guardians and not being warriors in our community.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Councilman Brown.
Yeah, so as a council member, I've led in the efforts within our social justice movement. I was one of the first elected officials that stepped out when Rayshard Brooks was killed, as well as Ahmaud Arbery, and I will continue that work, and I have. I mean, our police right now, they are incentivized through a performance review chart. I'm looking at amending the standard operating procedures to put safeguards in place for our Latino community, where if a Latino is pulled over by our law enforcement, that they're included in our diversion programs, and that we assist them if they need services to prevent them from coming in contact with police in an egregious way. I think this has not been done before in the city of Atlanta, and it needs to be done because there is unfair treatment happening right now against our Black and brown communities in Atlanta.
Excellent. Thank you for saying that. Piggybacking off of something that Councilman Dickens said when it comes to the Atlanta Citizens Review Board, as of right now, I think there is 0 Latino representation, as well as 0 Latino representation on the staff. And I like that you mentioned that one of your plans is to actually add 2 more. Can we elaborate on that and maybe pass it on to Antonio Brown here just to talk about something else that you might do
Yeah,
in situations like that.
it's, the thing that just upsets me is that we are so reactive as a city. Like for Councilmember Dickens to speak to adding 2 members of the Latino community on the Atlanta Citizen Review Board now, that work should have been happened. And as much as I appreciate it, we need Latino representation on all of our city boards and agencies. It should not just stop with regards to, the ACRB. I mean, I think that there are inequities throughout this entire city, and it's a reflection of the representation that we have within the city of Atlanta. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I am the first Latino city council member, if I'm not mistaken, to be elected in office. That is unacceptable in a city that calls itself a city too busy to hate. So our policies must truly become a reflection of what we seek to happen. Most of the Latinos can't even live in the city of Atlanta. So while we're speaking about the representation, we need to make sure that we're incorporating equities that is going to create an inclusive Atlanta.
Thank you for saying that and for your passion as well. Council President Moore.
Well, I would say that you're certainly welcome in my administration. And even now, if there's still some opportunities as I'm council president to serve on many of the boards and commissions. We, under my leadership when I was chair of committee on council, put all our boards and commissions online. And so we just need you to step up and say, I'm interested in serving here, or I'm interested in serving there. We just need to know who in the community has that interest. So when we're making appointments, we can have a more diverse group of people at the table. So I would encourage everyone to go on the city's website and look at the boards and commission and offer yourself so that we're making sure that we're truly representing the city of Atlanta.
Thank you for saying that. Anything else, Councilman Dickens?
Well, I'm the one that brought up the idea to add more Latinx and Hispanic members to this to the Citizens Review Board and other boards and commissions. So I do want to say that is very important. I think that in this room right now, we've just seen, so many leaders, Veronica, Frank, Juan. Now I'm getting myself in trouble. I start mentioning people. Don't do it. I got to mention everybody, all these leaders that are in this room. But representation matters. And now as I hear these voices and they are leadership, they will make recommendations. And I don't want to be the one that just knows it all. I want to hear from the community and have access and meet you where you are, just like I want you to meet me where I am. And so that means that having an advisory council so that in all of these places that we need to have more representation for Hispanics and Latinx community members, that I will be able to, as mayor, place people in the right position. So just I just came up with the idea to the board, but to say that this hasn't been done before and that means that there's something wrong with that. No, when we add, we keep moving forward. And I think we see each other now better and more.
Thank you all for addressing that. And yes, that's what we're living right now. We're looking for more representation in the city, in councils, in government, on boards, in companies as well, at leadership levels. So let's piggyback off that because Atlanta is a very proud, Black, vibrant city, but it's changing. The Latino community continues to grow. As we've seen with the new census numbers, we are now in Georgia over 10%. We're over 1 million. The city continues to grow with Hispanic population, but recognizing that individuals can be both Black and Latino, how would you, or what would you do to ensure stronger relationships between both communities, if you will? Madam President.
Well, I think it's all communities, and I believe the Black Latino community and the Latino community itself, and the white community and the Black community itself. And don't forget, we have the Asian community, and we can continue to go on and on. And you talked earlier about the Atlanta way, and we had this question at another forum. And what we said is that table has to be bigger in the Atlanta way than just to be straight Black and white, because we are representative of all. And I am so proud that I represented, I believe, one of the larger segments of the Latino community in District 9, and have provided services and activities for them and making sure that they knew me as a council member and that I served them. But I believe we also need to make sure that when we're doing things, that we have we have a seat for you at the table, or encourage you to take a seat at the table. Again, I want to extend to you the information that there are opportunities to serve. There are opportunities to represent your community, and please take advantage of it.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Councilman Dickens.
Yeah, Ivan, I have real friends and real colleagues in this room, people that I talk to and contact often when making decisions. And so I think that with 51% of the population growth coming from the Hispanic Latinx community, it is vital that your leaders listen and be attentive and be available. Be present.
That's right.
Right? Be present as we are today. Everybody can't say they're present, right? And so I think that my work at Georgia Tech, when I first got to Georgia Tech as a student, that was the first time I had studied with anybody other than Black people. That meant that was the first time I was with Hispanics, Asians, whites. So when I graduated, I went back to work as the assistant director for Institute Diversity, where I put the underrepresented minorities together, African American and Hispanics, to get through Georgia Tech together. That meant we had to make a way and learn to work together and see each other eye to eye and lock arms and go this path together. I will do that as mayor. As mayor, we will make sure that we make quality decisions together about the growth and future of Atlanta.
Thank you for sharing that. I'd love to get Councilman Brown's perspective, because you are Black and Latino.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that there is such a divide between the Black and Latino community, especially given the fact that a lot of the struggles in which we endure every day are so much alike. And we should be, it was like during the social justice movement, it was so hard to get Black and Latin organizations to come together for a cause that was greater than ourselves. And it was almost as if we allowed the segregation to stop us from being able to see beyond the fact that we are all so much alike than we are different. I would build a collaborative between our Black leadership in the city and our Latino leadership in the city, and have them come together and be able to advise me as mayor on what we should be focusing on. And just to kind of piggyback on what I said, authenticity is so important. It's so easy to come to a forum and talk about what you're going to do. The question is why hasn't the work happened already? Our Latinos have struggled in this city for far too long, and we should not just be issuing a proclamation today because we're giving a forum, or we shouldn't just be adding people to a board because it sounds good. This is work that should have happened a long time ago in the city of Atlanta, and hasn't. And that's the conversation we really need to be having, is why that hasn't happened until now.
Thank you for sharing that. Excellent. Okay, let's transition to the quality of life of Atlanta, because there's a lot happening. According to the recent AJC poll, next to crime in Atlanta, affordable housing is the second biggest concern or issue that's facing the city. What are your plans to address affordable housing and the crisis in Atlanta, including short-term solutions possibly, considering what's happened with the CDC moratorium, and any long-term solutions you may have? And we'll pass it on to Madam President Moore.
So what I've done is try to make sure that we can find solutions that will be usable and accessible to everyone, particularly in the district I represent. And many of the people in the Latino population were being displaced, and trying to find locations where they can go that can be affordable in the city, and it's increasingly becoming more difficult. So I want us to use our low-hanging fruit that we have resources right now available in the city. Our Atlanta Housing Authority property that needs to be built on. Our property and lives, as well as looking at our major corridors and seeing where can we build additional density so that we can get things moving, and city-owned property where we can control the land, thus controlling the affordability of those properties. Those are some things that I think that we can do now to get some going quickly, but we also have to look at some long-term solutions and making sure people can afford the housing. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure. I think we need to first have a conversation that our Latin community has been pushed to the suburbs, many of whom serve and work in the city of Atlanta. And one of the first things I will do is put an incentive program together where we create a fund that if you are Latin and you are working in the city of Atlanta, that you could utilize this fund to be able to relocate into the city in which you serve without having to exhaust resources, be able to have to travel outside every day coming from work, some of whom I know travel hours at a time to get home from working in the city of Atlanta. That's unfortunate. And the language access in the city of Atlanta for our residents to be able to even take advantage of the resources around affordable housing, the technical assistance and services to help kind of curb that barrier is really non-existent in this city. So we're telling our Latino community, come and take advantage of our affordable housing resources, but many can't even get through the language barrier that allows them to focus on.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that, Councilman Dickens.
Yeah, working folks are having a hard time living in the city of Atlanta. The cost of living has gone up since 2010. The cost of housing has gone up by 50%, but working class folks' incomes have only gone up by 10%. So at some point, everyone begins to be cost burdened. 30 to 50% of their income is being used for housing. And so that's why I've been a vocal and legislative leader on city housing. And when I'm mayor, I'll make sure that we build or preserve 20,000 units of affordable housing in 8 years. And that means building on our A8 Atlanta Housing Authority sites. That's 700 to 800 acres of land that's just sitting there needing us to build mixed income housing, high density housing at transit stations, et cetera. But the preservation of housing is important. There's a lot of currently affordable housing apartments that landlords are now making extremely improvements. I'll make sure I incentivize those landlords to make those improvements, but to remain to keep some of those properties affordable for people that live there, particularly school kids going to those great schools.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Sticking with quality of life, a question about the Mayor's Office of Resilience has been vastly underfunded in the past 4 years. Despite there being a citywide commitment to a transition to do 100% clean energy, what is the plan to reinvest resources into the 100% clean energy campaign and to restaff the Mayor's Office of Resilience? Brown.
Sure. You know, the mayor put forth the climate action plan, and I believe it passed back in 2015. And through that plan, there was an initiative to be able to reduce the carbon footprint and be able to contribute more towards the resilience, the program within the city of Atlanta, I believe by 20%, and we did not meet that goal. And I think that part of it was because these departments were underfunded, but I also believe that there were not proper structure in place to sustain a department like that. So I think that we really got to get back to the root of the focus and make sure that not only do we have staff in place that are competent and understand what the need is for the city of Atlanta, but that we can actually do the work we say we're going to do. That plan hasn't been updated since 2015, and no one has put forth any findings on how we move forward beyond that.
Thank you for that. Councilman Brown? Or Councilman?
Yes, indeed. Actually, yeah. So we have a goal of by 2030 to be 100% clean energy in the city of Atlanta. We have to recommit to that goal, even despite COVID over the past couple of years, taking our eye off the ball in some of those cases, to move towards that 2030 commitment. And that means to reinvest and to double down into our Office of Resilience. How do we go about doing that? We must be data driven. I'm an engineer, so I like the science of things. We have to have metrics and really show those metrics to the customer to hit these targets. Some of the ways that we will do that is to be able to make sure that we use a lot of solar in our new buildings constructions across Atlanta, whether that's all these projects that we're going to develop at affordable housing, our rec centers, our fire stations and police stations. And also my goal is to have free transit by 2030. To be able to have MARTA that's free means that more people will not be car dependent, which is contributing to our climate control issues, our climate change issues. I believe that this community is because we bear the burden of most of these injustices.
Thank you for sharing that. Council President Moore, same question about the 100% clean energy plan.
So I truly believe Atlanta should be a leader in this space, not only for our city and the state, but for the country. And to do that, you've got to first be an example and model the behavior that you want to see. We've passed many pieces of legislation related to it, and I think we thought that we did it. And what we haven't done is integrate that into everyday operation. We need overhaul. And as we're overhauling our departments, our facilities, we need to lead in that space. And to do that, we need people in my office that are going to be dedicated to making sure that every new purchase we have, every new direction we have are looked through the lens of resilience and sustainability. And then we can also make sure that our youth have opportunities through our workforce development agency where we can train them and get them excited about it, because understand those principles and to utilize those as well. So we're going to be a leader in my administration.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that as well. All right. So we've got a few more questions, and then we're going to take questions from the audience, and we're going to transition to economic development, if you will. Atlanta is home to many Hispanic business owners, and sometimes we need a little guidance, or we need some transparency when it comes to how do we tap into the city, the contract percentage of Latino business owner or Latino businesses that are able to access this. What is your vision for improving that transparency, that communication, and access to contracting opportunities for Latino-owned businesses? Let's start off with Madam President Moore.
Sure. So this is a space that I have been working very diligently with, and talked to many Hispanic business owners that have come to my office because things just weren't right. We have unfortunately, a pay of contracts, and people put their hard work and effort into bidding for things and just don't feel they have a fair shot. And that's why, as president, I'm extremely proud to be the author of legislation for independent procurement review officers. And these are people who follow the procurement process from the beginning to the end and are mandated to have a report before council before they give that contract. It has already stopped some messy procurements and has saved the city money. But what it most importantly does is equal the playing field so that everyone is played and treated fairly in the process. And if there's unfairness, the council will know about it and the public will know about it before it is awarded.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Councilman Dickens.
Yeah, so I've talked to quite a few Latino, Hispanic business owners, and what they all shared to me is that they want a fair shot and a fair shake, a fair opportunity. That's what most business people want, is for the rules to be fair. And so that's number one, is to make sure that they have the opportunity that makes this fair. That means, whether that's dual language on some of the documentation, some of these opportunities from the CARES Act or from the Rescue Plan Act, we need to make sure that our navigators are going out to the business community, working with Veronica and the Georgia Hispanic Chamber to be able to say, we want to work with you. Let's help you with technical advice to be able to fill out these documentation that's necessary to go to the communities themselves. That's one. Second is to get the corruption out of the system, whether it's pay to play or whether it's we didn't invite you to the bidding process. Whatever it is, it's unfair and it has to be rooted out. And it's happened to have a cloud of corruption over the city in the past. And then the third is to be able to make bidding, there should be smaller projects. And I say this for African American and Hispanics. $20 million projects need to be broken up into $5 million, $1 million, so the bonding isn't so high that it's preventative for small or medium-sized Hispanic and Black businesses.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Councilman Brown.
Yeah. Well, I think for starters, we have to lower the barriers for entry into these programs for our Black and Brown communities. I think that the barriers have been set so high that they have discouraged applicants from even applying. I know when I was launching my business right here in the heart of Atlanta, I was denied by Invest Atlanta and could not qualify for funding. So one of the first things I did as a council member, actually doing the work, was creating a community loan fund for credit disadvantaged small businesses that was specific to our Black and brown communities, where they could borrow up to $50,000 with a 3% fixed interest rate, a 1-year deferment on their first payment, and allowing them to use up to $30,000 of the $50,000 to pay down their personal debt that they leverage to sustain their business. That is how you truly address the problems. You create programs that are inclusive of the communities in which we are serving.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Immigration has continued to be a key theme in our city, as well as for our Latino community. We continue to grow. The Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs and Welcoming Atlanta was established and is a key agency for supporting diversity initiatives and encouraging intercultural exchange. How would you approach this? What changes might you add to the office? Are you committed to making sure that its funding is still there to fulfill its mission? Why don't we start off with Councilman Brown?
Well, for starters, I think Atlanta should be a sanctuary city. I don't understand why it's not. Fulton County doesn't even fit into the scope of being a sanctuary city. And I think in addition to that, one of the pieces of legislation in which I worked on council to pass was through the Office of Immigration with the City of Atlanta, was to provide the Public Defender's Office with more resources to be able to defend our immigrants coming into the City of Atlanta. And that legislation did not go through. It was not supported on council. So that should speak to the reflection of how people truly feel about truly addressing these more complex issues that are assisting our Black and brown communities in being able to move forward. There is no reason why our Public Defender's Office could not be properly funded to support our immigrants and our Black and Latino communities that are facing hardships at the face of our law enforcement agencies like ICE in Atlanta.
Thank you for sharing that. Councilman Dickens.
Yeah, one of the things I'll do is really show my support and embrace the Office of Immigrant Affairs. Right now, the two stalwarts that really stood that office up from the very beginning, they both have now served their time and moved on. And so that great knowledge base and experience and relationships, I don't want that to fall down. So we have Rolando now. I want to, stand up more individuals around him and to actually support that going forward and have more resources for it. 287G, the immigration, we want to make sure that we don't have any relationships with ICE. We don't want any ICE detainees. We don't want to have any of our local law enforcement to be used as immigration agents. And I'll make sure that I fight anything that comes from the state of Georgia that wants to put anything on us as the city of Atlanta. I'll make sure that we do as we did when a lot of refugees came to the city of Atlanta through the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, where Welcoming Atlanta stood there and helped navigate and get people to where they can get to some safety.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Council President Moore.
Yes, the Office of Immigrant Affairs is an integral part of what makes us Atlanta. And particularly being a welcoming city, we need people on staff, and will be in my office, that will help us guide those efforts. One thing I believe they can do is, one, we make sure they have the resources that they need, but they also need to be a good resource office. And it won't be just for Latinos. There are many other immigrants from other places who also need somewhere where they can contact and get pushed or directed into the right place to get the help that they need, whether it be legal help or help with translation or help with how to find housing and how to make their way in the city of Atlanta. So I believe it's a very important office. I've worked with them. They did a stellar job of trying to connect the immigrant community with the city and help them become a great part of our city.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Excellent. I'm going to toss out a question before we get into the audience questions that I feel like we've all touched on a little bit, but I'd like to ask you personally, what excites you about your first 100 days when it comes to working with the Hispanic community? And you're welcome to touch on outreach services, programs, access to emergency relief, rental assistance, food security, whatever it may be. But when working with the Hispanic community, what is it that that we're going to see within the first 100 days? We'll start off with Councilman Dickens.
Okay. So in my first 100 days as mayor, one of the things I'm going to do is have an audit of all customer-facing activities that the city has. That means to make sure that every public works, transportation, city planning, all of the things that touches the lives of every Atlantan, I'm going to make sure that they do a good job and meet their service level agreement. And we'll come back, we'll compare that to the 311 data to see how they match up. But I'll also see how they match up in terms of relationship with the diverse communities that they serve. The Hispanic community, the Asian community, African-American community, et cetera, to be able to have metrics to say how these communities see that that these different forms of government have been in relationship to them, so that we get direct data and feedback. The other thing is, I just want to get out and see everybody in every community, attend a lot of meetings, being smart enough to listen, to get feedback. I think that we've missed a lot during this COVID period, to have lots of meetings and go out and then get information back from the community and set up advisory councils and task force to be able to move forward with a new direction.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Council President Moore, same question about what excites you over the first 100 days.
Well, what excites me in the first 100 days is knowing that there are many challenges before this city and that I'm not going to be dealing with them alone. And that I put out the call today, and I will put it out again to you, to be a part of making our city better. I believe that we have everyone in this room and other rooms who can come together and individually and collectively work on all of the problems and issues that we face in this city. And so I'm calling on your community to step up and show up and be at the table and be with us as we work through those issues at hand. So I'm excited because I know that what seems to be unsolvable is solvable. And it's solvable because you're going to be a part of it and you're going to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great remarks. Councilman Brown.
Yeah, I'm just excited to be able to get the work done. I think many of our Latinos are struggling. They are living in poverty. They can't even afford to live in the city of Atlanta. Many of them own small businesses in which they can't even sustain and on the verge of shutting their doors. So within my first 100 days, currently, Georgia State University is studying a $250 million workforce development bond that I authored and passed legislation for on council, which will create living wage jobs for residents, offer them health insurance, and really give them an opportunity to thrive and prosper in this city of Atlanta. In addition to that, I'm going to fund our small businesses and ensure that Latino small business owners have a real opportunity to prosper and to thrive in Atlanta. That's what I'm excited about.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing that. Let's get into a few questions that are unfiltered, straight from the room, that just happened in the last few minutes. Joel, let me see what we got. All right.
These were already addressed.
Well, let me have many ways, just in case we got to throw this out there. Thank you so much. Because we want to get through them, and it's showtime. And what I love about what we're doing streaming as well is that everything is being translated into Spanish with closed captioning. So let me ask the first question. What is being done about having signs and documents in the city in Spanish and other languages? We will start off with Madam President.
Could you say the first part of the question?
What is being done about having signs and documents in the city in Spanish and other languages?
So that is
Documents in the city in Spanish and other languages. We will start off with
the city of Atlanta. I do
Madam
remember.
President.
Could you say the first part? One time
what is being done about having signs and documents in the city in Spanish and other languages?
It was not a good outcome. So that is a very important question, and there are not a lot of that, and I believe I will make sure that the city of Atlanta. I do remember one time I came up with a resource guide. They didn't all the people in the city of Atlanta who spoke a second language. It was not a good outcome. So that they would be on call and available to help, whether it be the court system. As a result of that, and I believe I will make sure that it or whatever, so that they could help them with the language. We came up with a resource guide. I believe we can all the people in the city of Atlanta who spoke a second language, bridge that gap, so that they would be on call and it's very important because because people need to be
pay their
treated
water bill or
fairly,
whatever,
and the
so
way you
that they
can
can
only
help
treat
them
someone
with the
fairly
language
is if
that
they
they
have
have
equal
I believe we can
ground in
have
being
more
able to
opportunities to
Okay, thank you. Perfect. Thank you
to
for sharing
bridge
that.
that gap
Councilman
in
Dickens.
language
Yeah,
barriers,
I
and
concur
it's
with
very
Council
important
President
because
Moore.
people need to be
More needs to
treated
be done in that
fairly,
area, particularly
and the
with
way you can only
documentation.
treat
In
someone
our
fairly
digital
is if they
environment,
have
it should be
equal
easy for us
ground
to
in being able
have
to communicate.
translations that are
Okay, thank
available
you. Perfect. Thank
on
you for
our
sharing that,
websites and
Councilman Dickens.
all of our
Yeah, I
city
concur
functions,
with
et cetera. We should be able to do that.
More needs to be
And
done in that
we just
area,
unfortunately
particularly with
don't.
documentation.
Right now,
In
look
our
at the
digital
Office of
environment,
Immigrant
it
Affairs
should be
website.
easy for
They have
us
a
to
translate
have
button, and they
translations
also
that
have,
are
you can do
available
it in
on
on our
various languages, but I
websites
still
and
think that there's
all of
even
our
more
city
that an
functions,
advisory
et cetera.
group and
We should
others
be
can
able to
inform
do
us
that.
how to do that
And
better.
we just
I'll tell you a place I see it being
don't.
done
Right
pretty
now,
well.
look
You
at
can
the
tell
Office
me
of
if you think
Immigrant
it's done
Affairs
well.
website. They have a
Jason
translate
Estevez
button,
and
and they also
Atlanta
have,
Public
you can do
Schools.
it in
When I go
various
there, I
languages,
see
but I still think that
stacks of
there's even more
documentation
that an
and
advisory
various
group and
languages.
others
I
can
see
inform us
navigators
how
and
to do
people
that
helping
better.
I'll tell
their
you, well,
children and their
Jason
parents be
Estevez
able to
and
get to where
Atlanta
they need
Public
to go with
Schools. When I
papers
go
that come
there, I
home.
see
My daughter's papers come
stacks of
with two sides
documentation
that have
in
various
dual
languages.
language,
I
and I
see
think that that's very
navigators
good.
that
That the city needs to emulate some of that,
children
and even
their
take it further.
parents be able to
Based
get
on
to
your
where they need
advice
to go
and
with
input
with
to me.
papers
So I
that come
think,
home. My
yes,
daughter's
that is a
papers
great
come with two
question, and more
sides
needs
that
to be
have
done.
dual
thank you for
language,
that
and I
as
think
well.
that that's very good that the
Councilman
city
Brown,
needs to
as far as,
emulate some of that
what's being
and
done
even
with
take it further
signs,
based on your
documents in the
advice
city
and
that
input to
that
me.
are in
So I think,
Spanish or
yes,
not in
that is a
Spanish.
great question.
Well,
and more
just to
needs
kind of
be
show
done.
you how
Okay, thank you
antiquated
for
our
that as well.
system is. I mean, I've been on
Councilman
council
Brown,
2
as far
years,
as
and we just
what's being done
integrated
with signs
within our
and documents in
technology
the
a
city
system
that
that
are
allows
in
us to
Spanish or not in
deal with
Spanish.
the hearing
Well,
impaired.
just to kind of show you
Before
how
they could not
antiquated
even
our system
participate
is, I mean,
in our
I've been on
city
council
council
2
meetings.
years, and we
So
just
I would make
integrated
a commitment
within
to
our
have a
technology
language system that
access
allows us
specialists
to available within
deal-
the city of Atlanta that does a complete evaluation on all of our information technology systems, as well as all of our programmatic initiatives to ensure that everyone has equal opportunity to be able to participate in our programs and be able to access our resources. I was in an Uber the other day, and the Latino driver told me that he lived in Atlanta, but he didn't even know about any of the programs or resources that were available to him because he couldn't understand them. That's unfortunate that folks in this city are missing out on opportunities because they cannot, we have not caught up with the times to understand how important our Latino community is in this city.
Thank you for sharing that. Next question. Buckhead. So we obviously have to bring this up, and thank you for whoever wrote this. What are your plans if Buckhead does go through, and what are your thoughts on it when, as far as the push to become a city? Let's start off with Councilman Brown.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
I understand the plight in which the residents of Buckhead may feel about the rise in crime in this city and the fact that they believe that they're being unfairly treated in the city of Atlanta. And I mentioned this at another forum that, it's not just Buckhead, though. We need to have some real conversations. There are other communities outside of Buckhead that are being underserved and underrepresented every day, that are being left behind and don't have the ability to have the voice that Buckhead has to have their issues addressed. So as much as I understand the issues in Buckhead and will work to ensure that they feel like they're being heard and that we listen and address their problems, it needs to be an equitable process. So all of our communities, including our Latino community, is also being heard in the city of Atlanta.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Councilwoman Moore.
Well, Buckhead is Atlanta, and Atlanta is Buckhead, and we certainly don't want to cut off any parts of our great city. So I want to be the mayor that helps bring us united. I represented Buckhead for 20 years as a council member. So on day one, I'm going to be working very hard to address the issues that they have, which are similar and the same, actually, as everyone else has. Making our city safer, making sure they're getting that they're paying for, delivered, and making sure that we're doing it transparently with ethics and being accountable to people that we serve. I'm going to be at the state legislature trying to stop the movement and talking with them, trying to convince them not to continue the movement. And if by chance they do get that vote, by November 2022, I will have shown them that there's great leadership in this city. We will have made progress. And I believe a majority of the people in whatever area they call to vote will vote to stay in the city of Atlanta.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Councilman Dickens.
Yeah, I don't want to see Buckhead leave. I want Buckhead to stay right where it is in the city of Atlanta. And we'll work diligently to make sure that happens when I'm mayor. I have the fortune of have lived in Buckhead, in Southwest Atlanta, Midtown, and Northwest Atlanta. So I've lived and experienced across this whole city. And what I know is that everyone wants to feel safe and they want to feel heard. They want to have a mayor that values them and that is hands-on and approachable and very available. And so that's why my Safe Streets Atlanta plan will help make sure that they're safe in Buckhead as across the entire city of Atlanta. But then to make sure that you're heard is about being available. We need to have more meetings. I'm going to Buckhead every single week already. Buckhead Council of Neighborhoods, Buckhead Hotel Council, Livable Buckhead, Buckhead this, Buckhead that. I'm up there all the time. I'm in Southwest Atlanta as well. So as mayor, you're the mayor of the entire city, and I want to make sure that they stay because they're going to see a service level delivery that is beyond what they've seen recently, and I think that they'll stay in Atlanta.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. A couple more real quick. Diversity is truly key to a strong administration. How will you diversify your senior staff in helping make decisions for your administration, to help make those decisions? How will you diversify, Madam President?
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to be calling again on you and others in other communities to be a part of the solution. And so offering yourself to be a part of the administration, offering your talents to be a part of the administration. And I believe that we will have a transition team that will be diverse and that will make sure that we're looking across the breadth of our city to make that happen. And so if you're interested, if there are things that you, or people that you want to offer, I think that you make that diversity by making sure that everyone's at the table and has an opportunity to offer themselves and offer their ideas. So it will be diverse, and I certainly hope that it will also include the Latino population.
Okay, thank you for saying that, Councilman Dickens.
Yeah, the most important job that the mayor is going to have in the first 100 days is hiring their staff, the cabinet, the chiefs, the commissioners. And that's something that's important because you have to look at people's history. As a business leader and as someone that has grown businesses and has led teams, I've led diverse teams most of my adult life. When I owned my own business for nearly a decade, I had Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, LGBTQ, even ex-offenders have, people that have come out of the prison system have worked for me. Even now, I have a very diverse team here on my campaign team, even at my job at TechBridge. I'm the Chief Development Officer for TechBridge. I have a whole team of people that work for me, and they come from all over the country, all over the diaspora in terms of ethnicity. So I want to make sure that I hire from the private sector, the public sector, people that are intelligent, capable, filled with passion and integrity, and they are going to be, and I'm going to be very intentional that they come from diverse backgrounds, and that's how I'm going to make sure that we do that.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Councilman Brown.
Yeah, I would ensure that my cabinet is a true reflection of the diversity within Atlanta. I will ensure that there is Latino representation within my cabinet. I will also make sure that the commissioners and our, positions under our commissioners and our deputies and our directors are also a reflection of that diversity. I think that, before Mayor Bottom's administration, I didn't see much, diversity and inclusion within the administrations within the city of Atlanta. I mean, I think that the LGBTQ representation has been very slim to none, and I would ensure that that is also a reflection within my administration to ensure that we have an inclusive city, because if my administration is not a reflection of the diversity in Atlanta, how are we going to be connected to the issues? How are we going to meet our community where they are, which I think is incredibly important to the success of Atlanta.
Okay, excellent. All these questions that were sent were amazing. I think that the team here has actually touched on all of them in some capacity, but I am going to end it with one extra question, Joel, if that's okay, that I saw, because I don't think we've touched on education much. And in our Latin community, that is extremely important. And we have a bigger hurdle to get over when it comes to kids in school, as you know. So Black and Latino students perform a certain amount of points below what white students may perform. In the South and the West Side schools have been failing students of color. They've been failing students of color. For 20 plus years, the responsibility mainly falls in the Board of Education. If you are elected, and this is obviously someone's opinion, but if you are elected, how will you and your administration work to resolve the inequity that impacts our youth, our Hispanic community, and their families when it comes to education? Who would like to take that question first?
I'll take it.
Yes, sir.
I would start by hiring a chief education officer. I would have this individual working directly with our Board of Education, with our superintendent, to ensure we're addressing the inequities that we see within education. As someone like myself, I dropped out of high school at 15. I never finished high school, and I never went to college. And I'm a sitting city council member, but I also recognize the hardship and adversity that I faced because of my lack of education. And I want to ensure that we close those gaps and that we build programs that are engaging, that create experiences for our students so that they want to learn. I mean, I go in some learning environments and students are just staring at a computer, and then you wonder why they're not succeeding and why they're not being successful in class. We've got to create engaging experience for them to want to learn, and I will ensure that the chief education officer does just that.
Excellent. Thank you for saying that. Councilman Dickens.
Yeah, this is very near and dear to my heart as a graduate of Atlanta Public Schools, and a daughter has attended Atlanta Public Schools before. This is hard to answer in 1 minute. But the thing that I want to say about this is that I will also have a chief education officer, but I was the city council member that created the joint commission between the Atlanta public school system and the city of Atlanta that says 3 council members and 3 school board members must meet quarterly to go over the things that are related between the city and the school system. They may be in school for 8 hours, but the other 16 hours of their lives each day, they are in the hands of the city of Atlanta. The environment that they're in, the vacant properties that's down the street, the sidewalks that take them to and from, the after school programs. We have to be intentional about tying the knot together. And that's why I'm going to create the Atlanta Department of Labor also, so that kids have summer jobs. They also have after school programs that's connected to the workforce, that the jobs that people are hiring, that we actually train kids all the way backwards into the school system. And so there's so much to be said about what our tie now APS, but I've talked about this 2 times since we've been up here about Atlanta Public Schools. So I keep it on my mind.
Okay. Thank you for that. Councilwoman Moore.
Yes, education is the key and pathway to breaking generational poverty in our city. And so as mayor, I'm going to work with the school board, and I have many ideas on how we can do it, but I'm not going to wait on them. I'm going to utilize the resources we have in our city, particularly our recreation centers, and take them beyond being recreational centers, to be centers where kids can come and learn STEM or STEAM, science, technology, engineering, and math, where they can learn about green infrastructure, sustainability, get them interested and exposed, particularly in our more challenged communities, to things that they regularly don't get into. And then we're going to work with our unions, because we don't have a lot of trade taught in our schools, and see if we can bring some of those programs to our recreation centers to really get the kids excited, those who may want to enter into a trade, and so that they can start apprenticeship programs and start to build wealth through higher paying jobs that can help them and their families.
Excellent. Great questions. We're going to conclude it up. We're going to wrap it up, but we're actually going to be about 5 minutes ahead, but I am going to allow the candidates to actually give closing remarks, and we're going to do this in 30 seconds each, if that's okay. And so if there's something that you want us to take home today, something that you want us to remember, that we can share in our offices, in our homes as we go to the polls, what may that be? So in conclusion,
If you got 5 minutes, why don't you just give us a minute?
You know what? Let's do it. Between 30 seconds and a minute, we've got the time. So I'd like for you to take your time and tell us what you want us to take home with today. So why don't we start with Madam President?
Well, what I would like for you to take home is that my name is Felicia Moore, and I want to be our next mayor. I've served with integrity and will continue to do so. You all have heard that saying, "Bye, Felicia." Well, this Felicia can't be bought. So vote for Felicia Moore for mayor and join our team.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. We'll pass it on to Councilman Brown.
Yeah, I would just say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting something different to happen. You know, what is mind-boggling to me in this election is that you have so many great ideas coming to the table and so many things that folks are saying that they want to do for the city of Atlanta. But you have to ask yourself, why hasn't it been done yet? Why is this the first Latino forum in the history of this city? Why is this the first time we've given a proclamation to the organizations that have allowed this to come to fruition? We have to ask ourselves these questions because I'm tired of lip service. We've got to do something different. We're on the precipice of Atlanta being this great international city or becoming a city we don't recognize. And we must create an inclusive ecosystem where no Atlantan is ever left behind again. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for being here with us, Councilman Brown. And in conclusion, Councilman Dickens.
Yeah, I'm Andre Dickens, and I want to be your next mayor. I do see the city as a glass half full, though. A lot of people talk about what we don't have, and that's really a deficit thinking. I'm strengths-based. I think about things that we do have and how to build upon them. I see strength in this room. I see strength in our communities. I'm the first council member to ever create a department. When I created the Atlanta Department of Transportation just a year and a half ago, I could have said, why didn't we ever have a Department of Transportation? I just did it, right? So that we can improve our roads, improve our coordination. I could say, why we at $10.10 an hour, minimum wage? I just made it $15 an hour because I thought it was necessary. I could have said, why is all this inequity on the Beltline? I created the Beltline inclusionary zoning policy that says 10 to 15% of every development along the Beltline has to have affordable housing. I didn't say why we ain't got it. I just said, just do it. Together, our strength, we get things done. And that's just 3 or 4 highlights of who you'll get as mayor when you vote for Andre Dickens. Go to andreforatlanta.com. Lots of accomplishments, lots of visionary ideas. Thank you.
Excellent. A big gracias to each of you, because obviously being here shows that you care about our community once again, and and you're speaking directly to our community. So I want to thank all 3 of you: Atlanta City Council President Felicia Moore, Atlanta City Councilman Antonio Brown, and Atlanta City Councilman Andre Dickens. So thank you both. I also want to bring attention one more time to the group that put this together. So thank you, Ohio River South, the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Latin American Association, and of course, Telemundo Atlanta, and to everybody in this room. We had a lot of media that were involved with this. We got the word out, so it is up to us now to continue to spread this message out to our group. Thank you again to the candidates and to all of you for being here. We are going to ask that the candidates hang out for just a few pictures towards the end as we wrap up, and also ask for the sponsors to come on up to join us for pictures. Thank you all for being here today.
This was amazing.